What's up, guys? My name's Josh, and today we are going to have some fun. We're going to be going over the brand new theme to the latest Mission Impossible film, Mission Impossible Fallout. And this score was created by Lauren Balfe, who is an awesome composer, really cool guy. And he's got some really interesting stuff that I think he's done in this film. Mission Impossible has a history of having awesome scores, and this is just another one to add to the list. But the cool thing that they've done is every Mission Impossible film has had a different composer, so we've got to hear a different take on the famous theme each time. And I really liked this approach. It was a super modern, kind of has that Hans Zimmer sound. A lot of people compared this entire score to The Dark Knight, which I don't really think. I mean, I guess I see the similarity. It's got maybe a similar tone, but I mean, that's a common tone in general. I think it's the colors he uses in this score, the low brass, the dark tone, mainly the low brass, a lot of low brass, is probably why people say that. But that being said, I thought the score was really cool, and so I just decided that when I heard the main theme, I just was so blown away that I was like, man, I gotta figure out how to recreate this. So I'm gonna pop on over to Cubase here, and as you can see, got the file open here, and as you can see, a lot going on in here. We will toggle over to the key editor, and you can see kind of everything that's going on. Bring this velocity down. So first thing I guess I'll do is just kind of play through it, and I'll try to kind of toggle back and forth between some of the stuff. And yeah, you guys can hear what I made. And if you're wondering what this is, so this is actually the track. And what I did is I put it up here, and I kind of use it as a reference while I was creating this to, like I said, the goal was to try to get as close to the sound of this track as possible. So that was my goal, kind of a learning exercise. And yeah, so see what we got. Cool. So let's kind of dive into this and figure out kind of what's going on behind the scenes here. So first, starting out, we've got the bongos, and one thing you might notice is that I've got a lot of things rendered out, and the reason I have it that way is because my computer has only 16 gigs of RAM, so you can only have so many things loaded. I don't know if you can see this menu bar up here, but this kind of lets me know what amount of memory I'm at. Right now I'm at 78%. So I can only have a certain amount of stuff loaded before the computer just literally freezes up and crashes. So the way I get around that with with only 16 gigs of RAM is I render stuff down. So, and I have seen stuff about freezing tracks, which I think is right here. That's something I'm going to look into. But for now, this is kind of the way I've done it. And it works great because the other cool thing is when you render something down to audio, you are essentially saving that data. So, for whatever reason I can't get this instrument to load, I've got this audio here forever. So that's the cool part. So if you've never done that before, I actually have a quick key for enable disable. So, and by the way I save RAM is I unload it from RAM by disabling the track. So I actually created a shortcut, which I think, under file key commands. And you go in there and you can create your own shortcuts. Ta-da. So yeah, you just find what you're looking for. I think, oh, here it is. Disable enable track, Shift D. So that's what I decided to make mine. So yeah, if I enable this, this bongo from Contact is not that big of a deal for Contact, but it also wants me, I'm going to need to turn that on. So if I just listen to this, and then here's the audio for that. So it's identical. But this is an audio track, this is coming from MIDI. So if you've never done a render, I've also got a key command for that. I use Shift R. So Shift D and Shift R, there's a reason I sign those right next to each other. So you just select it, and you either use your key command, or you can say render with current settings. So that's what you're pulling up. So, and by the way, if you ever need to do a command and you can't figure out what it is or where it is, use the help menu. It's awesome. So yeah, just shift or drag and hold this, and then I do Shift R, and boom, it's making a render, and then it automatically mutes this, and then what I do is I disable that. So super simple. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this track. Yeah, so that's a quick tip. I'll talk about, for everyone else who's really bored now because they already knew all that, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about Mission Impossible. So yeah, so it started out with the bongo. That was one of the trickiest parts, to be honest. I used Bongo's Cuba. I have complete Ultimate 11. So boom, bongos, and I just kind of went crazy on one of those. My keyboard's not on. I just kind of went crazy on that, and honestly, it's just a lot of chaotic bongoing. And then I mixed that. It wasn't sounding right, so I went ahead and mixed that with Bongo's Contact. This is from the free library of Contact that comes when you purchase Contact. So, by the way, if you've never looked in that, it's really awesome. It's called Contact Factory Library. It's right here, and it's got a lot of stuff in there. I'm really surprised. So if you haven't ever checked it out and you have Contact, you might as well check that out. They've got everything in here. Tons of stuff. So I think I found that under World, and percussion. Bongos. So boom. And I'm trying to remember if I did use quantizing here and there. I think I probably had to quantize this because it was just so, I don't have like a drum pad or anything like that. I just use my keyboard, so it's hard to do drums perfectly. So yeah, and then while that's going on, I've got a couple layered basses going on here. So I'm using what do we got here? Albion low strings octaves. Super impressive, just thick sound, strings low, octave short. What I do to save RAM as well is I actually, when I'm in here, I only load the single articulation. So if you've never done that in Albion, I know a lot of you guys have Albion probably, so instead of loading the entire strings low octaves, just go to Albion 1 Orchestra, individual patches, and you can just grab only the one you need, and it saves on RAM, because in that case, that's all I'm playing right there. And then I layered that with the bassist staccato from Cinematic Studio Strings. So totally different sound, but together they kind of got, they give you that really nice thick sound. And then I added a cello. So between all those, that's kind of what makes up the beginning. And then try to go on to this next part here. So what that is that second violin's trills, Cinematic Studio Strings. So take a look at that. Just got the trills loaded. And another thing you could do to save RAM here is, I think it's Option. Yeah, Option click, and it'll unload all the other articulations that you're not using. So if you're using one articulation per track, that's a great way to save on RAM. And look, my RAM went down to 78. And then mixed in with that, I've got a triangle, which let's see what I used. Was it East West? Nope, it was Symphony Series Percussion. I went ahead and bought the Symphony Series Percussion, which is Native Instruments, produced by Sonyu Score. I can't even read that. I just thought it looked cool, so I needed a percussion library, and it was really cheap. It was like $100 on sale. So yeah, so that's got a triangle, and I've burned that down to an audio track and kind of faded it in. In triangle, you have to turn it way down, but it really gives energy to this track right here. It just gives that sparkle that's kind of on top of everything. So then what I did next is I just kept layering in more and more trills. So I've got the trills here and here. I think these are octaves. Let's see. Cinematic Studio Strings, trills. Then I've got these little runs that go up. Okay, so what that does is that just kind of connects this huge build into the main meat of this track. So same thing. I think I did, yeah, so I just did staccato on the loosest setting. And yeah, so you can see I'm using Cinematic Studio Strings, and then I layered that with Albion 1 high string short staccato. So you can kind of hear the difference. Okay, and here's the Albion, or here's the Cinematic Studio Strings. So a tighter sound versus, oh, and then I got lazy. I layered in a woodwinds right here. I know it's not in the right section, but you know what? Sue me. So yeah, that's how we led into this part. Oh, and at the top here, I've also got time signature changes going. So if you've never dealt with that, the way you do that is you go here and visibility. I always forget how to do this. Oh. Oh yeah, if you change it, it will add one. So I don't want to do it right now and screw up the track, but if you change the time signature at a spot where there's no marker, or if you hit this plus button right here. So either way. And what that does is that just kind of, gets us in the right time signature for this track. The other really tricky thing was the tempo. I don't know if you can see this, but let's see. I had to map the tempo like crazy to get it to go with this. And I did the automatic tempo mapping. I won't try to teach that right now because I honestly forgot how to do it. But I started with that, and it wasn't perfect, and I had to basically manually do it after. And so that was one of the toughest things. And I think at the end I just gave up and I just went free wrote it. So that is the stuff up top. Okay, cool. And now let's get into the meat of the track. Okay, so what's going on here? We've got everything. Every instrument is playing, so I'm not going to open up all of them. I'll just open up ones I haven't before. So I've got the bassist Colegno. Which we're just going to go with that. The bassist Colegno. Okay, so that's giving us that percussive element. Cellos, violas. And Colegno is under pizzicato, and you switch up the mod wheel up in Cinematic Studio Strings. So I've got that layered with Albion string low octaves. Gives me that beef. And then the cellos for the bite. And then, before we go to percussion, the brass right here is what gives it that. Yeah, I mean, you're hearing a lot of brass right there. That's what's giving it that sting. So we've got everything from low brass here, Albion low brass, you can see, brass low short, nasty. I guess I combine those in that one patch. Makes it easier. And then I've got secret weapon here. Berlin brass. Love Berlin brass. Berlin brass speaks for itself. It is, in my opinion, the most realistic sounding brass. The cool thing is, though, I think, and I've heard a lot of other people say this, but the key to doing a realistic mock-up, I think, is having multiple options for the same sound and then layering them together or using the best option. One of those two things. So finding the best option out of multiple different libraries, the best trombone sample, or layering them together. And yeah, so that's low brass. And then I think, I had trumpets come in here. Cool. And then, okay, so then before we get to that part, so then in the percussion land, I've got Damage Armageddon Ensemble. This is a really great, if you want that epic sound, By the way, if you're only gonna buy one thing, buy Complete Ultimate. It has everything. It's, I don't know, $1,500. I think I got it on discount with this key. I have the light up, fancy keyboard, whatever. I got it all. I bundled it together and saved a lot of money. It's incredible. The only weakness I would say are the orchestral libraries, but you can always supplement that with, Albion. And I mean, honestly, if you got this in Albion, you'd be in a good spot. The new one has even more expanded and better, probably updated symphonic orchestral stuff. So who knows? It might be the go-to package. But yeah, so Damage is, it looks like this. And it's just an all-around great library. Percussion Studio Armageddon Ensemble. That, epic sounds. But if you look at Damage, it's got everything you could think of in the whole, epic type of sound. Metal, oil drum. There's hybrid stuff. Really cool stuff. And so in this case, I used it to get this kind of sound. And of course, I've still got the bongos going at the same time. And by the way, the bongos, that's the Mission Impossible sound. Can't do Mission Impossible without the bongos. So Lauren Balfe was a genius he basically changed everything and he kept the bongos. And that's how it still feels like Mission Impossible. So that's the percussion. And then I've got, fills, or, these connective elements. So, on a main hit or leading up to a main hit, you want to have connective elements. So like section 1, and here's the melody. So I've got I'll just turn the percussion on. I've got a cymbal swell leading into this area. And that's what kind of like propels you to the next section. You always want to have that motion going. And by the way, I only started doing this about a year and a half ago, so I'm in no means an expert. I'm just telling you what I think, or what I've learned in the short amount of time I've been doing it. Doing this, meaning sample music. I've been playing trumpet for a much longer time. So then we get into the next section, which is the melody. And the, where is it? The horns take it. So Berlin brass. People say that Berlin brass is wimpy, I think I've heard, or just not beefy enough. But if you go and you find the horns ensemble bells up, that's a beefy sound. I mean, it's pretty aggressive, I would say. Let me see. Am I using that later in the track? Oh, let me save on some RAM. So super aggressive, and just to give you an idea, compared to the regular horns legato, still a great sound, and for a lot of stuff that's the sound you want. But if you need that really great brassy aggressive sound, where in brass, when you push a bunch of air through the horn, like I said, I'm a trumpet player, it's almost like driving a guitar amp. It breaks up, and that's where you get that that's where you get that nasty bitey sound, which is what you want, especially brass. Low brass is, we're super familiar with that with low brass. Every time you hear that bite, they're pushing a bunch of air through the horn. So so for anyone who says Berlin brass doesn't have enough punch, check out the horns bells up. which is basically, French horn players play with their bells facing backwards. And when they play bells up, I think they just aim a little more like this. I don't know. Thought I would have a better explanation for that, but kind of disappointed myself, to be honest. Cool. And as you can see, as in a lot of modern music, there's not a lot going on with the woodwinds in my mock-up. Maybe in the real recording, he's got it. I have no idea. I just, I did this all by ear, so didn't have a score or anything. But I used it on this transition, which was great on that. It was great for the trills. Oh, piccolo trills. Super important at this section. And flute. That's definitely part of the Mission Impossible sound at that little moment right there. So cool. Everything else is pretty. I mean, it's pretty here's a. Okay, so last thing to talk about. This section right here was really tricky. Let me go here. So you hear that growl? That Berlin brass doesn't have or at least the one I have doesn't have just the basic Berlin brass doesn't have a growl trumpet. That's a trumpet flutter. And so what I had to do is dig into, where are my trumpets? I had to dig into, here it is. Trumpets. Let's see. Here it is. Trumpets flutter high. I had to dig into my native instruments again and the brass ensemble. People dog on the brass ensemble, the symphony series in general. People dog on it, but they've got this whole trumpet sustain, but not just trumpet sustain. Let me go to it real quick. They've got this whole FX section. Again, I got these all on sale one day. Oh, that's the essentials. So that's what you get if you buy complete, but then I paid a little extra to get these. Boom. Trumpets effects, trumpets expression, trumpets legato. So they've got tons of cool stuff in here. I won't go all into it right now, but trumpets effects, all kinds of stuff. Just really cool stuff. Now, I'd like to eventually get the Berlin effects, but anyway, so that is how I found that under the sustain. It's called Trumpets Flutter. And like I said, I'm a trumpet player. The way you do that is while you're playing, you say, I don't know if that's going to come through, but you basically you make like a bug sound with your tongue. You flutter your tongue at the same time as you're playing, and that's what it disrupts the air and gets that awesome sound. And so that combined with the piccolo and the horn, wherever it is. Thought I had a horn going there. Maybe not. Oh yeah, here it is. And then the low brass is just doing these awesome chords underneath. So I got the trombone sustain, Albion low brass, low long nasty, all going, and then just kind of all pushes to the end. Nothing new really at the end other than, the music changes, but the samples all stay the same. Boom. And nothing fancy at the end other than we brought back the trills in the woodwinds up here. So we brought back. Oh, actually, you know what? I think I layered them in with the strings. So we brought back all those trills and the triangle, and then we used the snare drum, cymbals, timpani, and bass drum, and the triangle to lead into. You can hear this ending to lead into that final climax of the end. And of course the bongos. You can't forget the bongos. Come on. Jeez. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. If you have any questions, just leave a comment below, and hopefully I'll see it soon enough to answer you to help you out. I tried to go into some extra stuff as I was doing this to just kind of, because I find when I watch a tutorial about Mission Impossible, I'm not really watching it just to find out how they made Mission Impossible. I kind of want to know all the extra stuff, all the little tricks. So for anyone who doesn't know that stuff, hopefully this helps out. For anyone who does, sorry you had to sit through all the extra stuff, but just trying to help a guy out, help a brother out, or a sister. So yeah, cool, guys. Yeah, and then additionally to that, if you have any requests or themes you want me to try to make up, let me know. I've got a couple in my head that I'm thinking about doing next, so as well as I'll probably do a couple walkthroughs of some original music too. So yeah, thanks for watching.